Welcome everyone to International Market Center's High Point Virtual Market. We're going to allow for another minute for some more people to join on. This session was almost at capacity, so it's going to be a good presentation today. So just give us another second or two and we'll start. Well, welcome everyone to High Point Market. Like I mentioned, International Market Centers is proud to have Julie Smith-Vincenti from Muses Media join us today and present our TrendWatch. Today's presentation will be on AVIARY, and it is CEU accredited. So for anybody who is needing that credit, you will receive the follow-up email tomorrow that will have your accreditation page stamped, and all the information for submitting will be included. At this time, Julie, go ahead and take it away.
Great, thanks so much, Kim. And thanks to all of you who are joining us for this installment of TrendWatch Spring 2020. For those of you who were with us 2 weeks ago this time, we took you to a place and trend and theme called Meadow. Today, our destination is Aviary. If you were with us 2 weeks ago, thank you for returning. If you weren't, I'm going to do just a very quick little summary of some of what we looked at then dive into the aviary theme, and then we'll talk a little bit about Penthouse, which you can join us for 2 weeks from today at the same time. As Kim had mentioned, you earn CEU credits for attending. So since it's a half hour, you earn a half credit for each of the TrendWatch installments that you attend. So a little bit about the TrendWatch program. This is a very popular program that IMC has been producing now for several years. And I have the great honor of working with the marketing team. So here's how it works. About 3 or 4 months before market, we identify concepts and themes and trends that we want to present to attendees at market. Obviously, for reasons we're all very painfully aware of, there is no market this time, so you won't be able to see our displays, but we're able to bring those to you virtually in the virtual Spring 2020 High Point experience. I have the great honor of taking all the submissions that come in. We send out to all tenants in IMC buildings at High Point to submit products. We usually receive in excess of 2,000, and then I winnow those down to what you see in today's presentation. That being said, I like to take a look at some of our past displays just to sort of lay a bit of a groundwork and build a story, a layered story to where we are today. So this was a display that we did called She Suite. This was imagined the offices of an at-home executive who maybe spends half her time at home, half her time working in the office. It was a very feminine mood to it. It coincided with a lot of the headlines that were being captured in terms of the Me Too movement. It was one of the first examples of how we started mashing up our patterns and started making very bold choices in terms of our finish mixes and our color combinations. Line and structure was one of our first look at sort of an 80s sort of throwback, very much emphasis on form. It was one of the first times where we used black and white as a backdrop and presented combinations of blue and red and green. Fearless and Flirty sort of speaks for itself. This was one of our most confident color presentations. And in fact, confidence is a word that you'll likely hear me say in today's presentation at least a couple of times, because confidence is really what's behind a kind of decorating trend, a design trend that we've been seeing now for some time called maximalism. And indeed, maximalism is about being very confident in your color, pattern, and material choices. Lastly, this was one of my, I don't like to pick favorites, but this was one that came together very well. And we were sort of first to market with a presentation of the sort of tropical influences that we were seeing in the marketplace. These tropical influences are timely, considering today's theme of aviary. So let's move from these beautiful islands to a place that I took you to 2 weeks ago. This is Meadow. And 2 weeks ago, we talked about the incoming purple hues and purple cast pinks and some of the sunny neutrals and colors like wheat and very pastoral and charming and quaint patterns and motifs. And indeed, these were some of the pieces that we looked at 2 weeks ago, where we looked at incoming mint colorways combined with cool grays, blue cast greens, insect motifs, ferns, pressed botanicals, and evidence of like sun and solar effects on our landscapes. We talked about florals being important to moving forward, especially combined in these sort of digitized presentation or recast colorways. And we also talked about florals being important in reaching out to millennials who are now entering life stages that might require or might their demand or their requirements may call for more traditional sort of nostalgic forms, but recast in ways that feel modern as well. And these sort of William Morris patterns with the evident floral motifs are one ways to reach out to that consumer. We looked at softer color palettes. It was a way for us to give pastels a new framework moving into 2020 and 2021. The color swatches you see here are from the Sherwin-Williams Color Mix 2020 forecast. I'll mention, I'll just say one more thing about that in just a moment. And we also looked at a lot of the neutrals and how those neutrals combined with some of the greens that are forecast to do particularly well in 2020 and 21, especially the mint and very softer pastel sort of greens. That being said, I'm taking you somewhere else today where the backdrop is lush and verdant and the wood finishes are natural. And not so surprising with that kind of backdrop, the stars in that presentation are quite colorful, very impressive plumage. And all of these beautiful colors stand out against neutral, verdant green backdrops. You would be surprised at just how many color palettes that you see in fine art or that you may even see in home furnishings forecasts year after year that seem to almost draw directly from the plumage of our avian friends. So without any delay, let's dive into this week's edition. Very briefly, I'm going to move pretty quickly. And that being said, all the products that are part of our curation are available in a PDF that you can download at the end of the presentation. And there's also a PDF link where you can download the Sherwin-Williams Color Mix forecast for 2020 as well. So with that being said, to dive into aviary is to talk a bit about maximalist decorating. And so since we aren't able to attend events that we've come to expect year after year, be that High Point Market or even some of the decorator show houses, I included some images from the past Kips Bay decorating show house to illustrate this idea of maximalism. Now, unfortunately, I am able to come to you virtually and show you images, flat images of the products that we're featuring. Nothing's going to beat the fact that seeing all of it together helps give a context for why I selected what I did. So what I've done is included just some maximalist spaces that really show great confidence in terms of color and pattern and form. And alongside this maximalist story, clearly there's confidence, clearly there's mashing up of color and pattern, but there's also this approach to your home as this curated space. It's a comfortable space, but you're curating that comfortable space for yourself and for your family members and for friends. Some of those spaces from that last year's show house. Had a mid-century modern and a pop art feel, but I love the way that this particular interior also bridges some of the formal silhouettes alongside very modern silhouettes. So with maximalist decorating in our mindset with these images, we've been looking at maximalism in our TrendWatch presentation now for a few seasons. Our first go played up the blues and the greens, mixed up pattern, and we used floral mashup patterns as our backdrop. In our second installment, which was called Animalier, we paired popular animal-inspired motifs with animal prints alongside very bold colors and that sort of combination. That being said, in today's stars are birds. Avians are no surprise in home furnishings. There have been very familiar motifs indeed, whether it's a peacock or a crane or a flamingo. But today's cast of characters is a little bit different. These are the stars today. We're going to look at combinations of the blues and the greens and stick with that sort of one side of the color wheel. We're going to look at color complements where we look at blues and then oranges, color opposites on the color wheel. There's another great example of that sort of incoming mint colorway. And of course, the iridescence and that sort of beautiful quality that when you're looking up close to the plumage of a bird feather, it has that wonderful sort of shiny, sort of luxurious and iridescent sort of quality. So some of today's takeaways, of course, will be avian motifs. We're going to show examples of lush greens. We're going to talk about cane and natural woven materials. Key to our maximalist aviary story today is mixing up our wood finishes, and we would be remiss if we didn't also include some blues, and we have some very artful blues in today's presentation. So without ado, let me get right into some of the selections that we made. So cane, I showed you an example in the previous slide of a more tropical look of cane. But cane also is one of those materials that bridges a lot of certainly price points and certainly styles. Here's a great example of cane as a sort of formal chair frame and alongside a very bold avian nodding tabletop collection. And this particular chair was to be part of our curation. This is from Alden Parks. So blues featuring prominently, and those color complementary blue, the sort of color complement to blue, beautiful orange. And so these were 3 selections from our display. And again, all the pieces that you see me talk about from here on were to be part of our display. I've just kind of segmented them in the sort of slides that, that follow, just as a way of pointing out some of the sort of highlights and some of the ways that, some of the key sort of takeaways, sort of micro level and macro level from our aviary theme. So with that being said, part of telling a maximalist story begins with your choice for the wall covering as well as the floor covering, but nothing says more maximalist like this wallpaper selection. This is from Detroit Wallpaper. This is their plume in the Amazonian colorway, and it plays on the bird's feathers and presents them in this sort of kaleidoscopic patterning. Along with that, we see feathers featured in this Company C pillow, which combines blues and color complement of orange against a sort of cool menswear inspired gray backdrop. And then lastly, we have a silk velvet pillow from MD Home in a great bright, bold plumage inspired orange. The blues in our aviary display also play up that sort of iridescent quality that I mentioned, which is very characteristic of plumage. That being said, we selected Saddleman's dyed hide area rugs. We have this beautiful printed pillow from Cloud9 Galaxy called Galaxy, and it has some wonderful metallic foiling on it. That piece of artwork is from Empire Art Direct, and it's available in custom sizes and with various finishing treatments that give it some of that luster. And then we also have this lamp from J. Alexander. It actually looks like heat-treated metal, but in fact it is a glass base that has a finish that sort of mimics that heat-treated metal effect. Alongside our blues, we have some pops of red. Now, red is one of those colors that we see inch forward and then maybe inch back, and then inch forward and then inch back. But red, nevertheless, is in our focus for 2020, and because we have greater longevity to our trends based on what we're sort of experiencing globally right now, red likely to push on into 2021 as well. So here's some great examples of how red's pairing up nicely with the blue. We have this great outdoor pillow from Elaine Smith. This is called her thumbprint design. That's also a cowhide airy rug that's been dyed from Saddleman's. And then this piece of wall decor is from Stephen Wilson's studio. This is a great resource if you're looking for a beautiful giftable item, as well as a great collection that's just perfectly tees itself up for gallery wall presentations. So what Stephen Wilson's studio does is they take luxury packaging. This is a Prada box, and they hand stitch each of these little leaves and vines that you see there. And then there's this lovely embroidered patchwork that they put within their designs. And then it's all encased in an acrylic box. It has such a wonderful, again, a curated piece for the home, a great gift as well. I would be remiss if I did not point out and include some lovely greens in our Maximalism Aviary presentation. So with that being said, here's some lovely lush examples. We have vase and a bowl from Abigail's Feather collection. These are handmade pieces, all made in Italy. We have the lovely Emma Chaise from James by Jimmy De Laurentiis. And we have a fun ombre glass lamp with a glass base from Sagebrook Home, as well as some fun faux botanicals from Tree Masters. Just want to make mention of the chaise. You heard me, or you might recall that I had shared that image of the William Morris inspired florals as a means of reaching out to millennials who are looking for traditional forms yet cast in very modern ways. And I think this Emma Chaise from James by Jimmy De Laurentiis is a perfect example of that. Now this one here is featured in a very silky mohair. Alongside these blues, its complements of orange, accents of red, and its color wheel partner greens, we've included some abstract patterns. Certainly introducing a hair-on hide print is a naturally occurring abstract. We also have this this area rug from Nurasan, very much in the spirit of a Vasily Kandinsky painting in my mind's eye, as well as this lovely handmade pillow from Liz Oliver's studio. So the chair is from Classic Home. That's the Austin accent chair. It has an oak frame and then a hair-on hide leather cover. We have the pillows are from Liz Oliver's studio, and those are silk and linen combinations. This is called Twisted Sands, and like all of her designs, which are quite gorgeous and beautifully handmade, it's available in custom sizes. And then just again from Nurasan's abstract collection, that's where this area rug is from. Take note of those metal accents on the chair. We don't have a lot of metal in our aviary story, but we do have these two pieces, which are nice additions. This is an aluminum table that's hammered and treated to an antique brass finish. It's from Horizon Interseas. And then we have this really fall hook from Sagebrook Home, and in a gold finish. In addition to hanging it on the wall, it also makes, the company recommends using this piece for tabletop display as well. And you can imagine how that would inspire some really gorgeous tablescaping for sure. So if you recall from one of those first slides I showed you, one of the key things in our presentation is this mixing of wood finishes and this sort of lightness that you would see in the pieces here. What we have is a chair from 05. This is their Edward chair. It has this cane accent, a natural finish, and it's worth noting that the mahogany for this chair is sustainably harvested. We have that paired with Sagebrook Home's looped wicker mirror. which sort of loosely recalls a floral pattern. We have more indoor pillows from Elaine Smith. This includes her cashmere design in papaya. That's the pillow on the top in orange with that lovely fringe detail in that sort of abstract way, as well as the macaw and as well as the cheetah print in a colorway that she is calling, I think, camel. And like all good things within Sunbrella fabrics, these are Sunbrella fabrics, they are water resistant, shade resistant, and mildew resistant. Perfect for outdoors, but lovely enough to bring inside as well. Speaking of those wood finish combinations, these two furniture pieces are from Indo-Puri, and what we have here is a black finish on a sort of mid-century modern bar stool that has a cane back, alongside a hand-carved sideboard in a finish that the company calls Farm. Makes a lovely complement to this very artful 43-inch mirror from Kenneth Kobonpwe. And it's has these lovely radiating pattern of pieces of rattan that sort of undulate and really make, again, for this artful, confident, sort of curated expression that you could introduce into your interiors for sure. And for some fun, we have these fun bookends also from Sagebrook Home. That combination of lighter finishes and darker finishes continues to in these selections. So, as you know, cane is not a new material. It's very, familiar to many, and we see it at multiple price points indeed, and we see it across many styles, right? I showed you that very traditional chair with the cane backing from Alden Parks, and then I just showed you a mid-century modern design that has the cane backing. Cane is as much a beautiful material to look at as it is a material that performs a function, right? It leaves for the elements to kind of cool our bodies, and no surprising, some of the more like famous moments of cane include the genrette mid-century modern chair that was designed and featured and used quite prominently in India, for instance, where you're very mindful of your climate and the temperature. I think that these designs here on this slide speak to that same idea of wanting a sort of open, airy aesthetic that can read a little formal, that can read a little tropical, that have that sort of light, airy feel, no matter which way you go stylistically. So just really briefly, here's who we're featuring in this slide. We have the Mason coffee table. It has a walnut top with that great open steel base, also from Kenneth Kobonpwe. We have this rattan one light fixture from Kenroy Home. That's actually, Kenroy Home is a first-time participant in our TrendWatch this season. You can take this design and go pretty modern. You can take this design and go tropical. You can take this design and go for more of a bohemian kind of look. And we're liking its placement in our aviary theme with these sort of lush greens, these lovely iridescent qualities, and against these sort of nice blue drops. We also have another pillow from ND Home, which again is that sort of silk velvet. And then these fun planters from Sagebrook Home that just sort of immediately allow to bring the outdoors in for sure. And another example of those finished combinations, just two great sort of cabinet maker, sort of benchman, bench crafted designs. The bench on the top is called the Huga design. This is from a new resource for TrendWatch, TRAA. It's a company that designs and creates furniture in Mexico. And then of course the table is the Madeline table. And this is from Tritter Fiefer, and they have such a lovely custom finish story for sure. The finish that's here is called the St. Maurice finish. So that concludes the pieces that we were going to bring together to you to tell our aviary story. It was to have a very verdant, a very lush, a very inviting and bold colors, and sort of our latest chapter of maximalist decorating. I'm going to stay on the line to answer a couple questions, but I also just wanted to share a couple of stats because we find ourselves in these unprecedented times. And so each day I'm just receiving new information, and so I wanted to share some of that with you. And while it may not have anything to do with birds' plumage, I think it's certainly appropriate for the times we find ourselves in. So this was a study that had kind of landed in my inbox. This was a survey of 720 adults and who were asked last week, what spaces were they going to potentially avoid even once the COVID-19 restrictions are lifted? And so what we see here is primarily evidence that that's going to be places where where it's almost impossible to imagine crowd control, features, places that we come to for entertainment. And it really isn't until we sort of get down to about 45% of respondents suggested that they might be avoiding large retail stores or malls. But otherwise, what we're seeing is that in these times, consumers becoming rather acclimated to shopping online, and that sort of online experience. We're all experiencing longer wait times in terms of packages arriving, and we're also experiencing different price structures in terms of shipping for sure. But so as a sort of follow-up to consumers being sort of cautious with regard to the types of places they'll go once the restrictions are lifted. Let's look a little bit about whether or not consumers are sort of missing the opportunity to shop in stores and in combination of store and online. So when asked, this was a study that was done towards the end of March and beginning of April, when asked if they think they'll be returning to physical stores, about 2/3 of respondents said yes. They want to return back to stores, and they'll be going to stores about the same that they were doing prior to everything that we're experiencing now. What's interesting is about 17% are really missing the opportunity to shop in store for sure. Then about 1/5 of respondents said that they've kind of acclimated to this online experience, that they're likely to shop less in bricks and mortar stores as a result of what they're experiencing. And then I also wanted to just take a moment. I'd be remiss if I didn't address this idea of working from home and what we in the home furnishings might be able to glean from this reality that we all face globally. So for those of us who've been in the industry since, say, in my case, the mid-90s, you, like me, experienced this whole shift to the home office trend, right? And that was about consumers looking in spaces in their home, unused areas that they wanted to repurpose into a more functional space. And so that's when we started to see the uptick in those huge, elaborate executive suite collections, executive office collections that had multiple furniture pieces. And then for the people who work from home, clearly that's an important space in their home. But my sense, though, of how we in home furnishings can really be tying meaningfully into the home work from home trend is, are we packing our furniture with as much versatility as we can in order to address not just the needs of one executive working from home, shutting him or herself off into a room, but instead the kind of versatile home furnishings pieces that show just how much we are integrating our personal and our professional lives. And by that I mean, so rather than approach this moment in time as let's warehouse big on a lot of home office furniture, it's what are the kind of work surfaces that can be shared and used by all family? What are the kind of work surfaces that have integrated charging technologies that make it easier for people to charge their devices? What are the pieces that can sort of seamlessly shift from being a place where we entertain, a surface where we might set up a tablescape, and a surface where we might set up our office? The key piece here is that from where we were in the mid-90s and that work from home trend that we were starting to see, and the work from home trend now is our working from home doesn't require the same kind of space that we used to, and instead it requires just useful, meaningful surfaces as well as places that we can share as a family. So I want to thank you for tuning into AVIARY today. 2 weeks from today, same time, we will be entering our third destination of our TrendWatch Spring 2020 presentation, and that is Penthouse. And I think these pieces here, which I've just, which I'm just giving you a kind of a sneak peek, really sort of set the stage for what you can expect in what our conversation will be like 2 weeks from today. Again, today was worth half a CEU credit. 2 weeks from today, the Penthouse presentation is as well. And with that being said, I think I might have a little bit of time for questions. Bear with me though, because I need to figure out where to access where those might be in the chat. So.
There was a question regarding one of the last chairs and who it might have been from.
Okay. Let's see. Kim, is that in the, would I see that chair in this more? Let's see. Let me see what the chat is showing. So, Kim, could you read me the question exactly, because I don't seem to be able to.
The question is, just saw, sorry, it was, couldn't hear who the chair is by. It was right as you were finishing up the presentation within the aviary trends.
Okay, so, well, then I'll go through really quickly because I'm not, I'm sorry that I didn't, I'm sorry I didn't take notice of when that question came in and which slide we were on. This bar stool is from Indo Puri, I-N-D-O space P-U-R-I. This chair is from Bungalow 5. This chair is from Classic Home. The chaise is from James by Jimmy De Laurentiis. And this chair is from Alden Parks. And I think that was the total of the actual seating designs that we had in our slides. And just to recap, as a follow-up to our webinar, you'll receive a message that has a link where you can download a PDF that has the company name for all of the products that were part of our curation. And just to underscore again, I have more products featured than just what was going to be in our curation. So be on the lookout then for that email with the PDF download. And I thank you so much.